I'd like to call this meeting of the Urbana City Council to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Chenoweth? Here. Mr. Hayes? Ms. Huth? Here. Mr. Otto?
Here.
Ms. Pat?
Present.
Mr. Whalen? Ms. Wyman?
Here.
Mayor?
Here. First item on our agenda tonight is approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additions or corrections? Any discussion? None. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any additions or corrections to the agenda this evening? Go now to petitions and communications. Before we get started, I just want to read a proclamation in honor of American Red Cross Month. It goes, whereas for more than 122 years, the American Red Cross has honored its mission to provide relief to victims of disasters while helping people prevent, prepare for, and respond to emergencies. And whereas last year alone, 180 silent heroes from our community helped our neighbors by supporting the efforts of the Illini Prairie Red Cross chapter, and more than 4,586 took the time to learn life-saving skills such as first aid, CPR, and defibrillator use. And whereas more than 35 families from this area were provided food, clothing, shelter, cleaning supplies, prescriptions, and counseling after a disaster destroyed their homes. And whereas community involvement is critical for programs that prepare individuals, families, and for emergencies. Through its presence in Urbana, the Red Cross is a leader in empowering people to be ready and prepared for the unexpected. And whereas those who are victims of disaster and those who are the recipients from the broad spectrum of the community services rely on the Illini Prairie chapter of the American Red Cross every day, now therefore I, Urbana, do hereby proclaim March 2004 as American Red Cross Month in the city of Urbana, Illinois. And Barb Payne is here from the Red Cross. Barb, if you want to come up. Step.
No, we just very much appreciate this good organization at the grassroots, and just was talking with Rex about the disaster, planning and everything like that. We're a quiet organization, confidential. It makes it difficult to get word out every single day of what we do, but we have to be doing something every single day. So we are trying to get that word out just a little bit more. If you have any questions about any of our services, please give us a call. We'd love to talk to you and reach out, provide, or get you more involved. So thank you very, very much.
Okay. Thanks, Barb, for your dedication. Thanks for your dedication. Okay, if anybody in the audience has any petitions or communications for the council, if you'll pick up one of these white cards at the back of the room, bring it up to myself or the clerk, and you'll get a chance to have your say for no more than 5 minutes. First, we have Gabe Omoasagi, 2409 North High Cross Road. Gabe, if you'll sit up here and speak into the microphone, please.
Thank you very much. And the first thing I would say is that I need to thank the city of Urbana for doing a hand, not listening to all the people who are afraid of Walmart. I live on a high cross road, people who are listening to high cross. If there's anybody who's a government, a place like that will affect most of the people. Obviously, I'm in support of that. I know that it's going to be very frustrating for Walmart is not going to do business. So at least I from one of the few things that they will do. With cancer. Well, the reason why I'm here is that I was here about 4 weeks ago because I was speaking a letter, maybe 2 months ago, about the parking deck.
This is Urbana, Gabe.
Sorry, Urbana, yeah. And the letter was extremely generous. You know, it said that you know that there's ownership defined with the deck, and so they were very willing to let me have part of it. So I thought about it, and I said, you know, how come I deserve such generosity from the city of Urbana? You know, and I read first, they said, well, you know, the contract was already in there. Now, if you sign this contract, then there were some engineering drawings that you got to fix part of the deck. So you got to spend some money before it becomes yours, even though we don't know who owns it yet. So then I came in here to, but I was a little late, so I just talked to the mayor. And the mayor said I should talk to Bill. And I talked to Bill about it. And of course, Bill said he would get back to me in about 4 weeks. I said, well, you know, what if I don't want deck was built in 1981? I was still in Africa, you know, probably never even heard of America, you know what I mean? So he said, well, you know, you have to accept it. If you don't accept it, you know, then maybe what we'll do is we'll tear part of the deck down. I said, well, yeah. Would it cost more to tear the deck down to fix it and give it to me? Then that would make sense, you know. He said, well, no, you know, if you don't accept it, we'll just go ahead and tear it down. Then over the weekend, I think, you know, I was reading something about Laura, and Laura was very interested in trying to get downtown going and, you know, parking, et cetera, et cetera. And here it is, one of the city workers is telling me that, you know, if I don't accept their generosity, they'll tear part of the parking down, which would prevent my workers that work in the building, at least there are probably about 14 different businesses in the building, you know, it will prevent them from being able to go in there. They'll probably have to look for somewhere else, you know, and the chances are they'll just move to Champaign, you know. And so, I mean, it becomes a clear case of almost biting your nose to spite your face. And obviously, you know, I mean, I'm not very diplomatic. I'm not a politician, you know, I call it, you know, and of course, I've said some things here before which are not very flattering to the city. But you know, it always comes to me. That's not the first time I've talked to Bill. I talked to him some years back because some of his environmental officers, you know, go around that, you know, before we get the letter, they would have fined us, you know, for garbage pickup or something. And you know, so I went there, and then he said, well, you know, I said, well, I thought you were supposed to give me 7 days. The guy said, no, you know, I can do whatever the hell I want to do. So I said, you know, what kind of arrogance is this? You know, I mean, you don't need that kind of arrogance when you're dealing with people that pay the taxes, you know. And that's why I came to you here a while ago, and I said, you know, maybe, you know, because a lot of people do see, well, what should I say, you know, I think it's a positive term if you're really liberals, but really very arrogant. They probably don't see it, but the point is they usually think they're smarter than everybody else, you know. And, you know, so, you know, I pointed it out that, you know, I mean, it's rubbing off on the people that work for you. You know, they're telling me that they can do whatever they want to do, and, you know, meanwhile, you know, I pay substantial taxes in Urbana. And, you know, I am sure that part of my taxes goes to pay their salaries. But yet I'm treated like trash, you know. So by this particular situation, I know that it's going to come to the council. I think we should logically look at it. You know, you can't force somebody to accept a gift. And, you know, I mean, if you're going to force me to accept it, then fix it first, you know, and I will gladly accept it. You know, but for you to say you will tear it down, it doesn't make any sense. It will probably make Urbana more of a laughingstock once again. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you. Any applications from members of the public? Council?
See, now they're going to ask you.
We'll go on, well, we've got no old business, so we'll move on to reports of standing committees. Ms. Chenoweth, are you the chair of the committee? You have the report?
We have from the Committee of the Whole, ordinance number 2004-02-016. That refers to an ordinance amending Schedule H of Section 2393 of the Urbana Local Traffic Code, requiring stop signs at a certain intersection. That intersection is the Lincoln Avenue and Lincoln Avenue intersection. So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? No discussion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Huth? Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Ms. Pat?
Yes.
Ms. Wyman?
Yes.
That motion carries with 6 ayes. Ms. Chenoweth?
Next, we have ordinance number 2004-02-017, an ordinance amending Schedule J of Section 23-183 of the Urbana Local Traffic Code, prohibiting parking at streets. Those streets are Florida Avenue, Abercorn Street, Montgomery Street, Oglethorpe Avenue, and Smith Road. So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There is no discussion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes? Ms. Huth? Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Ms. Pat?
Yes.
Ms. Wyman?
Yes.
Motion carries with 6 ayes. Ms. Chenoweth?
Ordinance number 2004-02-018, an ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement regarding safety, radio communications, and homeland security. So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on this? Discussion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes? Ms. Huth?
Yes.
Mr. Otto? Pat?
Yes.
Ms. Wyman?
Yes.
Motion carries with 6 ayes. Ms. Chenoweth?
Ordinance number 2004-02-020, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement to provide residential recycling collection and processing services, ABC sanitary hauling. So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? No discussion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes? Ms. Huth? Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Ms. Pat?
Yes.
Ms. Wyman?
Yes.
Motion carries with 6 ayes. Ms. Chenoweth?
Next have ordinance number 2004-02-021, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement to provide multifamily recycling collection and processing services, Central Waste Services. So moved. Second.
Do we have a motion? No discussion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes? Ms. Huth?
Yes.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Ms. Pat?
Yes.
Ms. Wyman?
Yes.
6 ayes. Ms. Chenoweth?
Ordinance number 2004-02-019, ordinance amending chapters 14 and 22 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Urbana, Illinois, regulating recycling taxes. This refers to the residential, dormitory, and multifamily dwellings. So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Huth? Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Ms. Pat?
Yes.
Ms. Wyman?
Yes.
Motion carries with 6 ayes. Ms. Chenoweth?
Ordinance number 2004-02-022, an annual budget ordinance. This refers to the recycling fund. So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, Ms. Chenoweth?
Just a quick question. Is this, are the changes in recycling effective immediately, or at what point do they kick in?
I think the new contract starts when? The next April 1st. And
Okay.
so would the bins be ready when? Bill, they wouldn't be, those larger bins wouldn't be ready at that time, would they? May 1st?
In terms of collecting the, does that start April 1st?
Well, we bill in arrears for the recycling program, so this would be, we pay next year for the services that we get this year. So the rate increase will not take place until billing next year, which I think is in March of next year.
Okay.
So this year, when people see their recycling bill, it will be at the old rate. And then next year, when they see their recycling bill, it will be at the new rate.
Okay.
So new services, what about the commingling of, they can do commingling of the recyclables even now, is that right, Bill?
Well, really, 1st of April is fine as far as commingling is concerned, but the larger 65-gallon wheeled carts will be, we're hoping we'd start distributing those in May, sometime in May.
Great. Cool.
Is there any other discussion? The word 5 years, possibly 7, because there's an option at the end of it, and for a very nominal increase, going from $2.25 to $2.50 per resident, per residence per month, we get the same kind of recycling that we've had for years, only an expansion and being able to commingle and use of 65-gallon toters for those residents that want to use that option this year. So congratulations, Bill, to you and your staff for getting this done. It's a good job.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Huth? Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Ms. Pat?
Yes.
Ms. Wyman?
Yes.
Mayor Satterthwaite?
Yes, that motion carries with 7 ayes. Ms. Chenoweth? Ms. Chenoweth?
Next, we have resolution number 2004-02-003R, a resolution clarifying the Urbana City Council's position on redevelopment of Lakeside Terrace. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Reports of officers. Yes, Mr. Walden?
I think it would be helpful if I took a moment and explained the situation with Gabe to the council that was discussed a second ago. The issue is this, is that in the early 80s, the city of Urbana granted permission to Steve Wiedemeyer, previous owner of 116 Main, to build and construct at his expense and own a pedestrian walkway from his building to the parking deck. Okay? That was for the purposes of his employees, better rental of the space so the employees could park in the deck. And so that happened in the early 80s. Since that time, there's been a couple of owners of that building. I guess during this period of time, the city has assumed that the original relationship, which was private property owns and builds the connecting pedestrian walkway to the deck, was in place. As it turns out, they're not, while the title company had assumed some things as well, perhaps there's not as good a documentation as there should be from 23 years ago. And evidently we have a disagreement as to who owns the walkway. And the reason that there's a disagreement is that pedestrian walkway, not the deck, is in need of significant repair, not the deck. The city of Urbana contracts or uses its own employees from time to time to inspect all bridges in the community. This pedestrian walkway was inspected and found to have some deficiencies. It's the position of the city that the pedestrian, that the private property owner or previous owners who erected this pedestrian walkway, private sector is responsible for its maintenance and care. We're willing to work with the person or persons responsible for that, but that is our position at this time. So that's where we are. This is not about any of the deck being demolished.
116 West Main Street's on the north side, so
Sorry,
you're referring to 115?
115.
Or 117?
123, isn't it?
There's two pedestrian walkways.
This would be the pedestrian walkway on the west. So that'd
on the
be,
west, so to the
121,
lawyer's offices.
121.
123 West Main.
Okay, 123. Sorry.
Okay. Yes, there's two. I just
There's
wanted-
two. This would be the walkway on the west.
Okay.
And our engineer is here to add to that.
Council may recall that we did a very similar agreement with 115 West Main because, again, that was undefined as far as maintenance is concerned, and in this case, the Baxleys own the property, and they've accepted the responsibility for maintenance. 123 West Main is this situation, and as Mr. Walden described, we need to address it sooner or later. So.
Any questions about that, Ms. Wyman?
So because the walkway is in need of repairs, if the repairs are not made and the walkway needs to be closed, there is still adequate access to the building, is that correct? Like from
Well, the
the other
ground floor
side?
level, yes. I mean,
Okay. And there would be then access up to the second floor, that's what?
absolutely.
Okay. And to do repairs, would the owner be eligible for any of the incentives, downtown incentives?
Yes. In fact, there are more repairs that need to be made to that building and area than just that pedestrian walkway. In fact, it's somewhat of a hazard even to walk underneath that area. It's ponds. We would really love to work cooperatively with the property owner to improve that area, and certainly that structure and the owner would be eligible for one of our downtown loans. I think that's been communicated.
That's it.
Not yet. Or might be watching. Come on in, Gabe.
But so that letter then will be sent, letting them know, letting the owner know.
And I'm sure we'll work it out. I just wanted to clarify that in no way is any portion of the deck going to be demolished. And, you know, if we can't work this out, we'll come back to you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions about that particular item? Any other reports of officers? Council members, you'll see on your desk the Economic Development Activities Report for the month of March, or dated today. So it would have been for last month. If you have any questions about it, you can direct them to myself, Mr. Walden, or John. Any other reports of officers?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll go on to new business. We have one item of new business. It's an ordinance approving a final subdivision plat, Walden Subdivision Phase 1, plan case number 4-S-04.
Mr. Mayor,
Kowalski?
I have a conflict of interest on this item, so I'll be using myself.
You are excused. Kowalski?
Thank you. You'll recall on January 20th, the City Council approved a preliminary plat for the Walton subdivision. That is a 7-lot subdivision at the South Cross Road and U.S. Route 150. The preliminary plat was for 7 lots, an extension of Tapman Drive eastward from High Cross Road, and a future north-south collector street that would eventually tie into Route 150. This for Phase 1 of that preliminary subdivision. It would create 2 lots. Lot 1 would be a 26.34 acre parcel, and Lot 2 would be a 1 acre outlot parcel, and of course, to the appropriate agencies for their technical review. And we've been receiving comments from those agencies, and they're minor and technical in nature. Probably the 2 biggest components of any final plat are provisions for access and drainage, and we talked a lot about that at the preliminary plat stage. Just a couple updates. Access, again, for lots 1 and 2 is primarily from Tapman Drive, which will be a new public street that will be right-of-way dedicated for and will be constructed by the developer. That will serve as a primary access to both the lots, although there will be a right-in, right-out provision on High Cross Road. There has been an intersection design study completed and approved by the Illinois Department of Transportation for improvements that will need to be made at Tapman Drive and High Cross in anticipation of the development of Lot 1. In terms of drainage, there's been significant progress made on drainage since we discussed the preliminary plat a couple months ago. There's been a lot of coordination between the project engineer for Lot 1, the city, the Saline Branch Drainage District, and the consultant, engineering consultant for the Saline Branch District. And basically, currently there's an old drainage tile that traverses the site, and the proposal is to relocate that tile into a new surface swale that runs along the north side of the site. That concept has been agreed to. For the purposes of the final plat, the requirements for drainage have really been satisfied, although there are some minor details that are still being worked out in construction plans that are related to the development of Lot 1. Not really for the plat, but more for the eventual construction. Those will have to be finalized, of course, before any building permit is issued for development of the site. The site is well served for all utilities, and there are your options to either approve or deny the plat. Staff does recommend approval, and does recommend approval based on the fact that it meets the requirements of the Subdivision and Land Development Code. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Ms. Wyman?
I have a question on the drainage issue. Is the old drainage tile going to be removed? And then the second part is, when is the new drainage swale or the new drainage component going to be installed?
It essentially, and maybe I'll give Bill's help a little bit, but the existing drainage tile that runs across the site is relocated. It will be removed. It's an old 75-year-old tile that would be relocated into the northern drainage swale. That easement will be dedicated, according to this plat. The construction of those improvements would be made during the development of
If I understand right, because the drainage of this area goes from north to south, if the drainage is on the north, is that also going to absorb excess water that comes south of the drainage swale? Would that be maneuvered into the swale as well that's on the north, or I don't know if I'm
There's
explaining.
two provisions for drainage. One is accepting the drainage that comes onto the site from the north. There's a lot of drainage that comes across Route 150 and onto this site. Development of Lot 1 has to take that water and move it essentially the way that it moves now, although it can't move directly across through the old drainage tile. It would be redirected and moved eastward in that new easement. The second component of drainage, of course, is for the development of Lot 1 to hold any runoff that it creates through rooftops, parking lot, et cetera, and then slowly release that water too. So there's really two components to the drainage.
And the new drainage swale will address both of those?
The drainage swale primarily addresses drainage that comes onto the site. There will be a large detention basin at the eastern end of Lot 1, which would be behind the Walmart store, which would collect all of the surface runoff from the development and then release that into the easement on the north as well.
And that collection, that there would be some sort of protection so that anyone walking around or I don't know, would that, or I don't know exactly what it's imagined to be.
Yeah, I believe their corporate policy is to fence that.
Thank you. Just questions?
Any other questions? Questions at this time? Yes, Ms. Chenoweth?
I have a couple questions. One is, I'm concerned about the access off of University. Right now, I guess I want to know what this preliminary plat for that includes the future road access over the what is now the abandoned railroad. This plat is committing us to. I have two. I'm confused. Are we just looking at the lots 1 and 2 and doing a final plat on that, or are we doing?
The preliminary plat for lots 1 through 7 was approved in January. The final plat for just lot 1 and 2 doesn't address this future north-south road. That would be on a future phase. So access to lot 1 and 2 is primarily from Tapman Drive, and then there will also be a right-in, right-out provision on High Cross Road for lot 1.
When do we anticipate a final plat on lots 5, 6, 4, 7, et cetera?
We can't really say at this time. It's nothing's been proposed, and we don't have anything ready to bring forward on it.
Okay. And another question I had was, I know that we're going to talk about whether or not there's going to be a bus shelter constructed at this location.
For bus service would be that bus would travel down Tapman Drive, turn around at a temporary cul-de-sac at the end of Tapman Drive, and then stop directly in front of the store, let passengers out so they wouldn't even have to cross the street. There'd be a walk. I believe the latest site plan calls for the developer to build a concrete foundation for a shelter, and then we'll have to figure out through the MTD, provisions for putting a shelter there if that's what they want to do. But so there will be an area where passengers can unload off of a bus onto a platform.
So, but Walmart refused a request to put a shelter or a bench or something at that location?
I don't think it's been discussed at this point.
Okay, so it hasn't been requested?
Not the shelter, no. And we can work with MTD to find out more about that.
Yeah, I think with the development, the size and the fact that it will primarily, or there'll be a number of the people will be employees of Walmart, I don't understand why we wouldn't make a request like that to see if a shelter could be built here. It's really, there certainly aren't going to be any new, any mature trees in this area for people to find shelter under. So really, they're in trouble if it's raining outside and they're waiting for the bus.
we'll talk to the MTD about that and find out their short-term plans.
Okay, so there's no plan for staff to actually speak to Walmart about Walmart providing a shelter?
We can speak to both and coordinate through MTD and the developer and find out
Okay.
how we can get a shelter there.
And then the other question I had to do with access off of, just so I understand what a right-in, right-out means, does that mean that someone coming down High Cross Road from the north to the south could turn directly the Walmart parking lot without going on Tapman Drive, but it would be difficult for them to do so because there won't be a turn lane for them to do so? Is that what that means?
That would be restricted. If you're heading south on High Cross Road and you want to turn left into the development road and you want to turn right into the development, it's very similar to the one in Savoy. That would be, you'd be able to do that. So you can turn right into the development, you can turn right out of the development, but you can't make a left across High Cross.
But somebody coming south on High Cross Road would be able to turn onto Tapman Drive.
Correct.
Take a left onto Tapman Drive and then get in, but they wouldn't be able to turn in if there was a driveway directly from Lot 1 out onto High Cross Road, rather than first going out into Tapman Drive. Then it would be a right in, right out only for that.
So just,
That's
because
not-
High Cross Road doesn't, but because High Cross Road doesn't have a median in the center, I believe, one could actually pull and turn left into an entrance. Is that correct?
Bill, you want to speak?
I just don't understand it. There's not a traffic directly into Walmart.
There will be a median when this is built on High Cross Road, where the
Okay.
right in, right out driveway will be.
And that's what the state of Illinois is constructing?
Yeah, no, Walmart is constructing at the request of the state of Illinois.
Okay.
IDOT.
So is there a widening of High Cross Road?
Yes.
Okay, in this area, and so what will High Cross Road look like after the widening?
Southbound High Cross Road will have 2 left turn lanes to go eastbound into Tapman Drive. Northbound, you will have a right turn only lane to go east on Tapman. And also northbound, there'll be a right turn only lane to go east in the right-in driveway at the northwest corner of the parking lot.
So basically, it'll look like, is that basically, so if 1 to go through traffic going south, 2 to turn left, a median, and then 1 to go through going north, and 1 to turn into Walmart?
I have the drawing here.
Okay.
The configuration.
I haven't actually seen what
If
High
I
Cross
got
Road will look
Van
like.
Elmo, I could show you, but I have the drawing. Each leg is a little bit different, okay, so it's not quite as you described it. The north leg and south leg are a little bit different, but I'd be happy to show you the drawing if you'd like to see it.
I guess what I care about is, at its widest point, how many lanes are there? And how many lanes and medians are there at the widest point?
Again, I'd have to look at the drawing, but if you want to know distance-wise, it's probably in the order of 60 feet, Bill? About 60 feet.
From curb to curb?
Yes, it's actually shoulder to shoulder, but yes. On High Cross Road.
Yeah, I guess that's not meaningful to me because I'm not an engineer, so I need to know how
Well,
many,
it'd be like
how many
crossing
lanes that is.
University Avenue then. To give you an example, if you're
Uh-huh.
Race and University Avenue, if you could cross there, or at Carl Hospital,
Mm.
it'd be like crossing University Avenue, 5 lanes, more or less.
5 lanes.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm willing to wait a moment. Could you get the drawings so that we
Sure.
can see them? And I have another question while he's getting that. This is back to the bus shelter with John. I'm fine with the bus shelter, but is the bus going to stop in front of the front door to the store?
No.
No. All right,
No.
that's a problem. The front door is on the west side, and the bus is going to stop on the south side.
The bus would stop on Tapman Drive. On
Okay.
the north side of Tapman Drive, the bus would be facing drive-through parking lots and through the front
Right.
door.
Okay.
It's dangerous for them to do that. so.
Because that would save the need for a shelter if the bus came out to the
If
front
Walmart was
door.
the shelter.
Pardon?
If Walmart was the shelter, then.
Right.
it would
Well,
be-
like at Marketplace, you get the bus, you're in the mall, you just step outside the doors of the mall, and that's where the bus comes, and so you don't need a shelter because the mall is the shelter. Yeah. Just have one set you can just pass around so we can...
Yeah, Ms. Chenoweth?
And the other concern that I have has to do with signalization at this corner, but I think I'll wait until Bill Gray.
If you want to show it to Ms. Chenoweth so she can count lanes, I see what... It looks like more than University Avenue, I guess because the median would add width.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's huge. Is there going to be signalization, is there any plans for signalization either at Tapman and High Cross or University and High Cross?
Tapman and High Cross Road is currently signalized, and it will continue to be traffic signals. And at University Avenue, there's traffic signals.
It's signalized such that traffic on High Cross Road has to stop currently?
Yeah.
Yes, at both locations, at right.
Maybe confused because, yeah,
Really?
Tapman coming out of the post office there, Tapman doesn't go through right now, so it's a T intersection, so you only get, I mean, High Cross Road gets the green most of the time, and it's only green for Tapman Court a small percentage of the time because there's a very small amount of traffic coming in and out of the post office and the other businesses there. So considerably different with this construction.
And north of University, High Cross Road will remain as it is currently?
North of University, yes.
least
That
during
will not
this-
change at all.
Okay. And currently, High Cross Road is how many lanes?
Well, it's really wasn't obviously a left turn lane for southbound. But really, High Cross is one lane in each direction, one lane northbound, one lane southbound.
And so it basically just widens for a period of time to allow for the...
Washington Street, it's right, it's north of Washington, it'll taper back to the two-lane cross-section.
Okay. So this will actually widen all the way down to Washington then?
Yes. Took a little better to High Cross Road. Again, there would probably be signals at Florida and High Cross Road. So as you can all of a sudden envision here, there would be 1 to 2 more signalized intersections between University Avenue and Windsor Road in a fairly short period of time once it's built. So we're careful about where the signals intersections go. We're careful about access control because we don't want private driveways and other streets, multiple streets in between the signalized intersections for safety and speed and traffic flow. But yes, this development in time is going to have a few more traffic signals occur, which is good, and maybe for some it's bad, but that's what's needed for traffic to flow there.
Just for information for the council members, the intersection of High Cross Road and University Avenue has just been recently completed. The state did that project all the way from High Cross Road up to, was it Smith Road, or all the way up to?
All the way to 50.
Well, all the way to follow that direction, but then west, they're light at
I'm
the
sorry,
Guardian.
University
Yeah.
Guardian Drive, yes.
So that's all been redone, and that intersection doesn't need any other improvements as a result of this development. Any other questions about this? If not, a motion would be in order.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Huth? Ms. Pat?
Yes.
Ms. Wyman?
Yes.
Motion carries with 5 ayes. There being no further business to come before us this evening, this meeting stands adjourned. We'll be meeting as next Monday at 7:30. I'd like to call this meeting of the Cunningham Township Board to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Chenoweth? Mr. Hayes? Ms. Huth?
Here.
Mr. Otto?
Present.
Ms. Pat? Mr. Whalen? Ms. Wyman?
Here.
Mayor Satterthwaite?
Here. Let's see, we have a quorum. First item on our agenda tonight is approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there a motion?
Move approval?
Motion and a second. Any discussion, additions, or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Next, we have the approval of the township bills. We have in the town fund the amount of $44,145.60, and in the general assistance fund, the amount of $23,328.32. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval?
Second.
Motion and a second. Carol, anything we should know about the bills this month?
No.
Discussion? For discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Reports of officers.
I have a couple of things. I wanted to bring your attention to some proposed legislation that's in both the Senate and the House that is introducing legislation permitting a tax cap exemption for general assistance. There's a page that I've copied out of the Township Officials magazine, plus a short description of the bill in both the House and the Senate, and some letters, copies of letters that I received back. I've written to our representatives and people on the Rules Committee about this particular bill. I think the township, it would be helped if something like this were passed. I have no idea what the chances of it passing are, but it would help in those years that were limited from getting what we could, if we could tax at our maximum rate. Sometimes tax caps prohibits us from doing that, and this legislation would exempt general assistance, the general assistance tax levy from tax caps. So I thought you'd be interested in knowing that. And when I sent the packet out for the amended budget, there was a page missing, so I've handed that out as well. I just didn't get put in there.
About the reports? Okay, thank you, Carol.
I'm trying to understand this, what's on our plate here. So you are suggesting that this is part of the TOI's agenda, and that could be an agenda item that we take up as township supervisors?
Well, in case you were interested in supporting this legislation, each year the Township Officials of Illinois ask for suggestions from township supervisors on what kind I might be interested in pursuing, and this was, I think, one of the topics that came up, just because of a lot of the townships are facing the same problems we are with the General Assistance Fund, the expenses exceeding.
Is there some way that, this seems to be a topic of discussion, and this is the first time I became aware of it, so I'm wondering if we could actually put it on an agenda as a topic of discussion, or is that what is intended?
Just for you to know about it, I think, in the event that you wanted to contact anyone to support it. I have written letters myself in support of this, and I'm not sure the latest status of a bill, and I don't remember if this was the House or the Senate. It had gone from the Rules Committee to the Finance Committee, and I think they haven't had a hearing on it yet. So what I can do before the next meeting is just kind of see what the could add it at that time.
Well, it would be useful for us to kind of know, you know, what the status of the legislation is, and then we could take appropriate action. So maybe you could provide us updates.
Sure. And actually, this the magazine that I get this out of, you get a copy of, I believe, and they have a legislative update every month. So I'm thinking that this is the most recent issue.
Okay.
I got a question.
Yeah.
I might have missed out on in explaining the budget. There was a situation where you could not transfer money out of the general assistance fund, but then in another situation you could take it out of the township fund. What's the difference between the two?
I think the law just allows for transfers one way, except for in the last year they allowed for from the general assistance fund to town funds for the general assistance units that were building up too much of a surplus and needed to get rid of some of the surplus so that we wouldn't be considered excess. So
you could do that one-time transfer from general assistance to town fund, but the statutes only allow for it town fund to general assistance fund without any limitations.
Once a year.
Town fund to the general assistance fund, I think you can do it any time. It's the other way that they were allowing a one-time transfer only, period, to back, and there was a time limit on that.
I'm a little curious, since general assistance is an entitlement fund, if, and the township is under tax caps, if all of a sudden there were someone who met the eligibility requirements for general assistance that the township had to borrow, if we're stuck under tax caps, does the township just go further and further into debt, and or how does that, except for this sort of legislation?
Right, right. And this, I think, 20 years ago or so, that before tax caps were even in place, that once you even reach the rate limit and taxing, that if you run out of money, then you borrow it. And we had issued tax anticipation warrants and notes, which had to be 6 years' tax bills, and eventually dug our way out of that. It seems to come in times of recession, you know, that we're having to spend that much money. The other option is pretty drastic. You can adopt a set of general assistance standards, general assistance, which makes it really difficult to be eligible, and you also don't have the medical bills. But I would really hope that we wouldn't have to do that, because it's the only way you can be eligible is if you're considered by even harsher standards than what we use now. And then I believe that there is no medical coverage other than even more basic than what we have now. So you'd save a lot of money, but you wouldn't be helping very many people either.
Thank you.
Any other reports of officers, petitions and communications? Anybody here to speak to the town board this evening, and members of the public? Okay, we'll go right on to the new business, which is the FY04 tentative amended budget. Carol?
The reason that we're needing to amend this budget for the remainder of the fiscal year is because of the high medical expenses in the general assistance fund. Spent about 96% of what we have budgeted, and we know that the bills awaiting payment are going to be higher than what we have left. And to try and remedy with a line item transfer, because there's no other line items in general money, and also we're limited when we do transfers to 10% of the fund. I've gone through the whole budget where we can, and there have been some trimming in some areas in town fund, which help the end of the year balance, because we'll have to, in order general assistance fund, we're going to have to have a transfer from the town fund to the fund. And I think $40,000 is what I had estimated. Of the pending bills we have to pay, and of some of the bills we've already paid, it's possible we could get some relief if the clients who incurred those bills get approved for a medical card from the Department of Human Services, but that's not something I'm holding my breath for, so we have to be prepared to pay these. And that's where the majority of the changes are. The employer health insurance goes up April 1st, so that's going to cause a little more expense than we had budgeted for, and the employer IMRF rate also increased quite a bit starting in January 1st, so that also, those are to be amended, but we were able to cut quite a bit in the building maintenance. We're kind of perpetually planning for repairs to town hall, but we haven't had to do anything yet this year, so we've saved some in that line, or the appraisals line item in the assessor's office. And when we adopt the final version of the amended budget, you know, it's possible there could be some changes for better or for worse, depending on what kind of bills come come in between now and then, but amending the budget will allow us to get some of the billing that we need to.
I have a couple of questions. One is, when we pay some of the bills, say, for example, well, to the various hospitals, are we paying, do we get any discount, or are we paying the full price for someone who walks in the front door and has a problem and doesn't have help?
We pay at what is called the public aid rate, and the hospitals are required to accept that, so it's the same as what you would pay if you were on Medicaid. So it's quite a bit reduced from what the full charges might be.
And both hospitals participate in that, or are they required to do that?
Well, I think the hospital refused to see anyone, and they know that we pay a per diem, and that's by law, that there's a particular amount that we pay. We send all of our bills into Springfield for pricing, and they will come back and tell us what to pay for a service or whether that service is even covered. There are a lot of things that we just don't pay for, period, that the client will either get billed for, the hospitals will. And generally, our clients will not qualify for the charity care provided because they do have some type of coverage. It's not that they're without it, it's just us. But I thought that might be another option, is to contact the newly advertised charity care programs to see if they'd give us a break or reimburse us on anything, because it doesn't take long to rack up a lot of bills. There also is a type of catastrophic insurance that the township provides, but it has quite a high deductible and it's per client, so it really wouldn't be of any savings to us either. We just have a lot of clients with chronic health problems.
What are we looking at in terms of a cut into next year's social service funding due to this? I wasn't able to figure that out from there.
Well, and it will depend what the final figures are. We allowed $80,000 for the social service funding, and I can't see us going over $50,000 or $60,000. I mean, I think that's a good case scenario. Have to cut back the deficit spending that we've been doing. We're spending more than we're taking in town fund, and also eating up the surplus by having to use it in general assistance. So I think that would probably be my best guesstimate.
Is it possible that the township could talk to Carl and Pravina and actually arrange something so that instead of saying, don't come to us, go to Carl to get charity care, there might be the township could offer some of the charity care opportunities kind of directly via partnership with the hospitals?
Well, I think what you can do probably is make some arrangement for health care. We would have to look into it because it's part of the eligibility and benefits of general assistance is that we provide medical coverage. So, I'm not sure how that would work. It would certainly be worth investigating,
But our number of clients on general assistance is down. It's that the medical average per client has gone up. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think the caseload's creeping back up somewhat. It was around 71 at the beginning, or for the beginning of March, and that will probably rise a little bit. There is a higher percentage of clients who are unemployable right now. I mean, they're chronically ill, and we're having tremendous problems with them trying to get other benefits. It's just a really long process. There's like 36% of our clients have pending SSI applications, and that is a process that can take years. So in the meantime, if someone's applied for SSI, then we also require them to go to the Department of Human Services and apply for a medical card, because they are supposed to make an eligibility decision, and there's just lots of problems with that process. Clients are coming back and saying, well, they told me not to file for this until Social Security's made a decision. And we're now trying to order medical records for people and go with them to the Department of Human Services office
And that's
to try and help them try and get approved for a medical card there, because that would help us a lot, but it's not working very well.
It's federal agencies, not state agencies that are causing the problem?
No. I think the SSI determinations are taking a long time just because there's so many people applying. And it's with the application process itself, that's not a problem. It's at the state level, at the local office, that the process is difficult, and we think the office is not doing everything they should be doing to help people through that process.
Have we been in contact with Naomi Jacobson's office about this problem?
I've sent copies of letters in the past, and we've had ongoing correspondence with the head of the local office also, and get back with her about that. I had sent her something early in the fall, I think, and we can send something again.
Okay. Thank you.
Following up on Danielle's point, I think it'd be essential to talk to with the hospitals and see, because right, they have just advertised new plans covering anybody, I think fully covering anybody up to 150% of the poverty level on a sliding scale, up to 250 or 300% depending on the hospital, I guess. And so it seems odd that, we would have to be cutting a service they're providing more. So I don't know do you have contacts over there at the hospitals to?
We have some contacts just for billing. I think, if we want to see if they'll reimburse us, we can find out who to start with over there. I'm not sure.
Well, I'd be happy to work with you on that. if you
Okay,
want.
great, that'd be good. Yeah, maybe meet together. I think that would help.
Okay.
One more thing about the amended budget. I didn't change anything in the rent or utility programs, still in hopes that we can provide some of those. And we'll know more when we get to the final draft of this. This has to be available for at least 30 days. Then we'll have a hearing and a final version of the amended budget. And then we'll be working on next year's budget as well.
Let's see, where's mine? So do we need a motion on this?
I
Carol,
think
or-
just,
or
designated as the tentative
designated?
budget.
Okay.
I move approval of the designated amended tentative budget for 2003, 2004.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please signify by
Aye.
opposed. That motion carries. Next is approval of agenda for the annual town meeting, April 13th, 2004. Carol?
We are required to have an annual meeting every April, and the town board has to approve the agenda for that meeting, which Phil will be keeping each other company at. And I think the agenda is included in your packet somewhere.
Okay. Any questions about this? Motion for approval?
Move approval. Second.
Motion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. There are no further items to come before us tonight. We stand adjourned, and we'll be meeting as the Urbana City Council minutes at 7:30.